One of the biggest stories of the year has been bubbling under the surface for about 2 months now. And Sam McClure, our chief football reporter from 3AW. Sam, great to have you on board. And there he is, the man, Christian Petracca. He's a big name. He's a Norm Smith medalist. He has become the biggest story of the year. What's going on?
Certainly has. Evening, Ed. Evening, everyone, and to our viewers. We'll start with the who. Tom Sparrow, part of the leadership group, the captain, the vice-captain, Jack Viney. Jake Lever wasn't there because he was sick, pulled out of the Collingwood game the night before with gastro. The captain, Max Gawn, and Christian Petracca, the man of the moment. Then there's the when. The when is 12 o'clock on Saturday for a 3-hour meeting, and the where is the motor. A nice wine bar just happens to be owned by that man Max Gawn in Hawthorn. Haven't been there, but heard they serve a nice drop myself. The what is the most important, and that is what on earth were they there to talk about? Now, the Melbourne Football Club will say it was a leadership meeting and it wasn't specifically called about Christian Petracca, but Ed, as you can imagine, it dominated the 3 hours. From
Sam, the fact that they're saying that it wasn't a meeting about anything else, I think everybody's sort of saying, come on, Melbourne, how about levelling with everybody and just tell us what's going on?
And the what is the most important thing here. So there are two main themes that came out of this. As to Christian Petracca asked by his leadership group, what is going on? What are the major problems that have been surrounding season 2024 for you? The first one is the injury. Now, we all know what happened. It was King's birthday. It was a sickening collision with Darcy Moore, the Collingwood captain. Just happens to be a friend of Christian as well. We know that he went back on the ground. It wasn't that has really caused some frustration and anger in the Petracca camp, because he himself said on Instagram that he wanted to go back on the ground. He went to the Epworth Hospital, quickly transferred to the intensive care unit in the Alfred, where he spent the best part of a week. Now, it's those 2 weeks after the injury where Christian Petracca felt like he wasn't contacted enough by enough key members of the Melbourne Football Club, and that those key members didn't quite gauge the gravity and the severity of the injury. Now, we know from the Howie Games podcast during the week that it was in such a bad way, that such was the trauma, that he was actually fighting for his life and could have at one stage lost it. So that is point one. Point two is the culture. Now, this is a much harder thing to talk about because there's complexities and there's layers in it. But Christian has become, over the last couple of years, frustrated with some of the things that have gone on and off the field. Not just the on-field culture of losing finals. They haven't won a final in Melbourne since 2018. But there's also what happened with Clayton Oliver. There's what happened with Joel Smith. There's the fact that Alex Neil-Bullen has requested a trade home to South Australia. Mitch Cleary from 7 reporting in the last hour that in fact Cozzy Pickett has too requested a trade home to South Australia. All of that, in Christian's eyes, talks to a club that hasn't got the culture that they publicly say they do. Now, after the 3 hours, Ed, I'm told that everyone hugged, everyone high-fived, everyone shook hands, but we know what happened less than 48 hours later, and that Christian Petracca walked into his exit review meeting and told the club of his frustrations, reiterated that he didn't want to be there and that he wanted to play for a rival Melbourne club next year.
Matthew Lloyd, you've been a captain of a football club. Jimmy Bartel, you're at a club that actually had to be pulled together and then went on to premiership glory. Is this an untenable situation? Is there any way back for Christian Petracca if no deal can be done? Or is it a matter of he's laid it down, there are things that need to be fixed at Melbourne. If they fix them, can he come back? Yeah,
things are never perfect, Ed, and I think the question I have is, Christian Petracca, are you open to sorting through these issues? Yes, the club may not have been able to, in a situation where they thought, give him space, give him time, only certain people can come and see you. Mistakes may have been made, but are you willing to sort through and go, things weren't done perfectly, but that may happen. Let's sort through it. Clayton Oliver, we could have done things better, but are you willing to say, help change and be part of the change? Let's do it together, or have you checked out, and that's where they've got to weigh up, is he worth fighting for?
Jimmy, you've had players in your group pointed out and said, you must change, and they did. And one was Gary Ablett, and he went on to become one of the greatest players ever.
Yeah, slightly different circumstance, but I take what you're saying, and Lloydie touches on there, that you've got to be open that can we create solutions, because there mightn't be a solution for Melbourne Football Club to solve what Christian wants and what Sam's reporting on, because if you're only going to outline maybe 2-3 clubs, those clubs mightn't get the deal done. And I tell you what, at the negotiating table, Melbourne doesn't have the whip hand. So they're probably going to get an offer that's not going to satisfy them, and that's a tough decision for the Melbourne Football Club.
It's damaged goods now for whatever's available. Damien, you've written a piece today on AFL Media. What's your thoughts on this as a seasoned journalist who's seen a lot of these things happen over the years?
The detail that Sam's bringing to the table tonight too, it does put into context that the anger now that is now apparent with the teammates. I mean, the brand Petracca is a part of this, but the strategy around the The release of information, Ed, to want to leave. Now, he hasn't officially requested that, but clearly that is what is the case. He's chosen to be silent. He's the most active person in football on social media, choosing to be silent. And I know for a fact, and Sam, you've also acknowledged this and reported this, that teammates are tired of this right now. Now, again, these things can be resolved. We've seen Danaher, we've seen Dunkley, we've seen O'Keefe all have a moment where they wanted to get out of their club, were forced to stay for at least one more year, and in O'Keefe's case, forevermore. But this is almost at the point of no return right now from a relationships perspective.
You make a very good point there, and I'll come back to you, Sam, on this. My understanding is that the Petracca camp believe that Melbourne are leaking against them, and the Melbourne camp think that Christian's camp is leaking against them, which is usually the end of the line when you get to these situations. But you can look at it from 2 points of view. You know, the players are getting sick of him, and he's saying, well, I'm actually sick of you guys. I've been banging a table for ages. I'm the one who got carted off the hospital and I'm minus a spleen now, and all this other stuff going on, and I'm wasting my time. I'm 28 years of age. I am a marketable commodity. I don't want to be on a sinking ship if you're not prepared to ride it yourselves. Where does it go to from here?
Well, I mean, that's the $1 million question. It's the $6 million question, really, when you consider what his contract's got left. I'll just leave you with this, Eddie. All the club's saying right now, briefing people that they're not interested, don't buy into that for a second. The one thing we know is a football club's second language is lying. The second thing we know is that it's not in their best interest to come out and tell the truth. The Carlton Football Club is preparing for an elimination final. So people buying into the fact that they're saying Harry McClure off the table is just not accurate.
Sorry, Sam, if Carlton or Collingwood can't get a deal, could you see him going back to Melbourne, or he'd prefer to go to a different club rather than head back there?
It's a difficult question to answer, Lloydie, because I'm not in Christian's head. So I'm not sure what he is and isn't prepared to do. My gut feel on all of this, and Damo, you've covered these stories for a long time now, is that there is usually between now and the end of the trade period another club, another player that comes to the forefront and becomes another option.
Doesn't necessarily align, though, with Christian's request to go to a big club, and that is part of the brand Petracca element. One part we haven't even touched on yet, which is arguably the most important part, and that is the body. He turns 29 in January. He's unable to even do a fitness session of any note at the moment, with 5 years to run of a deal that at some stages of that next 5 years reaches $1.7 million per season. That is how much it is in one particular season that remains on it. There's a massive doubt about this body.
I'd look past. I think that's just the nature of the injury, Damo, that he can't do that.
You've lived it.
Yeah, and that's the case for 3 or 4 months. But I think he's in the best 5 players in the game, maybe the best 3, and I think you look past that and you try and get him to your club.
Let's quickly just have a look at some of the things that have been said. Howie Games, he was Christian Petracca.
I think just constantly getting asked about is like, you just relive it so much. So for me, I think about it every day, which is something I eventually will get over. But yeah, so mentally I'm struggling a little bit, but I know that the work I put in, mentally and with all my mindfulness and meditation and surrounding myself around good people, I no doubt I'll be fine.
All right, he's also on the record saying he doesn't want to play in front of small crowds, and that Melbourne's demographic's not his demographic, and they don't come when it gets cold. So there's a lot of things there that are going through a bloke's mind to say, I don't want to be here.
You see him at the Pies, Ed?
Oh, I'd love him to be at the Pies, yeah, if he's fit and ready to go. I don't know how they get the deal done, but I think every club, 18 clubs want Christian Petracca to play for him. So we'll see what
the one part I think the damage it's doing to him, it's huge. I hadn't heard a bad word about Christian up until the last week. So I think that's something he and his management need to think about over the coming weeks about how he's now being viewed.
Well, I've been told he doesn't care about that at the moment, right at the moment anyway.
And people are leaking from both sides. Yeah. We'll cross to Cody Waitman in a few moments' time, and Christian Petracca is cooking at Cody Waitman's big art festival tonight. We'll get to that. Sam, well done, mate.
Thanks, Ed.
We're going to get there, and there's a lot to get through. Stick with us because we might come back to you on this as well. Tell me about Tom Barrass. We've got a grab from Tom Barrass. Let's roll Tom when he'd signed his new contract. No, we haven't got it. We're going to do it later on.
No, we'll do it later on.
We're going to do Sam Mitchell, sorry.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, we'll touch the Tom Barrass issue later, but look, Petracca wants out of Melbourne, obviously. We know this is happening at Richmond, and as we are going to air tonight, it is starting to drop that Liam Baker's official. Rioli was official yesterday, wanting to go to the Gold Coast, and the Shea Bolton one will be official as well, that he wants to go to Perth as well. So this club has had this coming for some time. It's now official right now, Jimmy.
Yeah, and I mentioned this the other day. It's an exciting time, really, for Richmond. That's how you've got to look at it, because the clubs they want to go to have got high draft picks. You can get yourself in a great position before Tassie comes in. You finished 18th with these players already. So you've got to look forward and see what you can maximise out of that. As we mentioned before, you do hold the strength because they've got long contracts in front of them and they've picked one club. So that club's got to come to the party.
Lloydie, they're in a good position, Richmond, aren't they? They can finish low next year and get into the last 2 or 3 drafts before Tassie comes in. And then the only currency will be free agency, and they're going to have a truckload of money in their salary cap to attack. They are probably in the best position of any club. Would you rather be them or Essendon or St Kilda at the moment?
Well, Essendon and St Kilda, yeah, you're right, they are in that quicksand area, which we spoke about, where they're falling middle of the road. The worry I've got for Richmond is that so many players want to leave in the one hit. We saw the Brisbane Lions many years ago had everyone who wanted to leave across a 2-year period. They've got to sort that out because you don't want more players wanting to leave in 12 months' time. But where they are in this draft hand, in a magnificent draft, they can pick the eyes out of the best kids in Australia and have 5 of them come through together over the next 10 years.
So it's interesting, Shea Bolton has now come out and said that, broken exclusively on 9 News and on these footy shows, decried by many in the West, and not the situation. He wants to go home, and we expect that that'll be the case. We're going to take a break.